Yeah, look, part of the onboarding process for us, and even when the organisation doesn't support it, something that I've always done in my teams is to put together a skills matrix, self-assessed, diagnosed level of skills. But from that, the reason for that is to get an understanding of where they're at, understanding of what they do and don't know, but the real reason is to customize a 30, 60, 90-day plan with them. And part of that is that, look, I, I have a belief that onboarding is an experience that doesn't end at the end of the first day or week, right? It's a continuing process that can literally take months. So the first 3 months, it's about getting them up to speed as quickly as possible. So if they tell me that a primary tool that we use is a weakness in their area, then we'll give them time to pick that up. But there's also the other elements, because walking into an organization, you don't know anyone yet. You don't know the processes. You don't know who's who in the zoo. And so putting all of those capabilities and learnings together and allowing them to explore that, so both the organisation themselves and the tools, while getting onboarded to the actual work they're doing, is the best way to overcome that.
Businesses just need to create some urgency around these challenges, and understand that things are probably going to be like this for a while now. So, what I see for us at Academy XI and in my role is that we need to be creating more awareness around the pipeline of talent that's transitioning into the digital space, because people, candidates and, individuals are seeing that we've got this huge push in terms of digital and tech. So they are going out there and, signing up to courses and retraining themselves and wanting to make that shift in their careers. And so, the talent is there. It's how companies are harnessing that. And, companies need to, invest in things like capability uplift programs, invest in graduate programs, and create space for employees to provide support to less senior talent that they bring into their businesses.
Both human-centered design and design thinking are kind of strongly evidence-based practices. And critically, in either of those approaches, you're unshackling yourself from the expectation you understand the answer up front. So if you contrast that with something like the lean startup approach, where you're going out there with an answer and you're testing, validating that understanding and iterating and pivoting and so on. This is really going, well, actually, we don't know what the answer is yet. Let's take some time to understand holistically the problem that we're solving for and putting people at the center of that, and then delivering iteratively. So really that the net result of that is design thinking is a great way to understand holistically and strategize towards what you should deliver. And that's really complementary to, say, an agile delivery approach where you're delivering iteratively. So you're delivering, the smallest increment of value you can each time.
To be honest, I'd probably have to reflect on this a little bit to give you a really clear, clean cut answer, because every single company, you're right, that I have worked for has been incredibly different. I mean, even sometimes people, when they see an Apple or a Tesla and they want to talk about these companies, or people often, for example, put these two companies sort of in the same wheelhouse. So they sort of put them in the same category. But even those two companies alone, even though the scale and the impact and the notoriety might be kind of similar, internally, the way that these companies operate and the skills that they look for, the way that they build teams is just incredibly different. So I guess just to back up that and just say or attest that I have sort of seen that across every organization that I've worked for.
Often what will happen is there will be a point where there's critical mass, where you've convinced enough people or enough people are advocating about it. And there's this whole idea, I can't remember what the concept was, where you get people to work in your design team and you can convince them about the idea of design. Then they go off into their teams and it's almost like an infection. I mean, wrong word to use in COVID times, but the idea is they start advocating for design in their teams and they go off and start advocating for design in their teams. So your trick isn't for you to convince every person in your organization of the value of design. Your goal should be to convince the right people in your organization of the value of design and let them be supporters or advocates for what it is. And over time, that will, be the culture of the organization. And, a rough way of saying it as well is that if enough people change and the culture changes, the people that don't want to change will leave. And, it's a sad realization, but it is the truth that there are certain people that just don't like working in that particular collaborative, iterative way.
And I think it's really important that leaders, or be it sponsors of projects, are thinking strategically about digital and are supporting and backing any changes in ways of working. I think, that is when organizations and teams are set up for success. I think the reality is that, you're always going to have differing levels of digital sort of know-how or maturity across the business, right, from leadership down. And I suppose how we handle that is tailoring to the right audience when we're delivering our messages. But I think, if we take sort of Coles' agile transformation, we have ultimate support from, our CEO of e-commerce, and he really believes in it. And ultimately, that is setting us up for success.
Yeah, I think probably the number of businesses that have been investing heavily in design thinking training, in the Australian landscape is starting to increase, sort of all the time, because it is just that, it is how do you chunk out really big pieces of the customer journey, chunk them down into manageable areas and investigate and understand deeply, and how do you use that process to create and form a new language around the customer. You look at very large companies, companies like Telstra and so on have been doing a huge amount of that over the last couple of years. And it's starting to shift the way the culture thinks and the way that they're starting to look at the market, which is for a big engineering based organization, that's a big shift.
I think there's a real benefit to partnering up with organisations like Generation Australia and Academy XI, just because they have the pool, they have the pool of these women, but it's also kind of partnering up with these training organisations to kind of go, okay, so how do we really unpack and embed and build a program that is not only going to attract women, but also going to retain them, inside the organisation. And, these people have the expertise in being able to provide that. The journey that we had come to at MYB was that we launched Develop Her back in 2016, and it wasn't great. I'm going to say that. And the reason why I want to call that out is that you're not going to get it perfect the first time or the second time, but the most important thing is that you're constantly learning. You're constantly learning about how do you make environments inclusive, and there's going to be moments where you're going to make mistakes, and that is okay. It's about overcoming those learnings and mistakes even further.